Hello and welcome to part 3 of me going through every single Generation 1 Pokemon and giving you my favourite card of each of them. Now this is going to be the final part of the little mini series that I've been doing, because I've been doing about 50 per episode, so today we're going all the way up to number 151. If you haven't checked out the past 2 ones, then make sure to go check those out afterwards. There's no particular order, it's just the order of the Pokedex, so you can always just watch this one first and then watch the others after. I've also had quite a lot of people asking about doing different generations, so please let me know in the comments down below if you'd like me to do this for other generations, like in general, because I mean, I personally find it really fun, but obviously I want to make content that you guys want to see. So if you want to see it, then let me know in the comments down below. But for now, let's not waste any time. Let's get straight into the video. Then for Exeggcute, there's actually quite a few cool cards in this one, to be honest with you, because they all kind of have that, like, do you know like the you know, in Snow White, like the seven dwarfs, like, it gives me that vibe. They've all got different personality. I thought it was pretty cool. But I ended up going with this one from Surging Sparks, which of course came out in 2024. This was illustrated by Okable and last sold for £1. Then for Exeggutor, I tried to pick one that I just, you know, thought that was matching the vibe or also just looked nice. So I ended up going with this one from Paldean Fates, which of course again debuted in 2024. This is illustrated by Ikigami and eBay last sold was £1. Now another one of my Gen 1 favourites, we have Cubone here, and again, quite hard to pick my favourite one, but I ended up going with this one. I thought it was cute, got a bit of a story to it, stuff like that. It's a really cute card, so I ended up going with this one from Aquapolis in 2003. This is illustrated by Halida, and it was last sold for £4.60. Then we have Marowak, and I ended up going with Dark Marowak from Team Rocket Returns in 2004. This is illustrated by Irita, and last sold for £14. Again, not too many cards here for Hitmonlee, and that really grabbed me, to be honest with you, but I ended up going with this one from Undaunted, which was from 2010. This is illustrated by Scyther and last sold for £1.80. It feels like they are my comfort person. That if I'm like, oh, I'm not sure, and then I'm like, end up picking one, it feels like I often go for them. I don't know why. Then for Hitmonchan, I had a few more nicer picks for Hitmonchan, to be honest with you, but ended up going with this one from Ruby and Sapphire in 2003. This is illustrated by Sugiyama and last sold for £14.60. Then for Lickitung, I ended up going for another very modern one, this amazing illustration rare from Temporal Forces, debuting in 2024. This was illustrated by Orca and last sold for £9. Then for Coughing, I ended up going with this one here from Hidden Fates in 2008. This is illustrated by Suruta and it last sold for £1. Then we have this Wheezing card, and this comes from Call of Legends, debuting in 2011. This was illustrated by Kusajima and last sold on eBay was £1.70. Then we have this really cool Rhyhorn card. I thought it was really cool, to be honest with you. There was quite a few that I really liked, but this one in particular, I don't know, just really liked it, from Unbroken Bonds in 2019. This was illustrated by, I'm going to assume it's So-So, I'm going to assume that, and last sold for £1. Then for Rhydon, I ended up going with Brock's Rhydon, which of course comes from Gym Heroes in 2020, nope, 2000, just 2000. This was illustrated by Ken Sugimori, and it goes for £16. Also, I realised I didn't say this earlier, I was going to say this at the very start of the video. I'm not counting Legendary Collection in this challenge, because if I did, they would all be Legendary Collection, because that is like I think everyone knows by this point how much I love Legendary Collection. So I didn't count any of that in this challenge, whatever you want to call it. Then we have Chansey, and I had to go for none other than the beautiful illustration rare from my beloved Twilight Masquerade, debuting in 2024. It's such a cute card. I feel like everyone just loves it because it's got so much love, and very well deserved love. This was illustrated by Aoki and last sold for £27. So this one is growing, definitely growing. Then for Tangela, I stayed on the modern trend and went with the 151 illustration rare, of course, coming out in 2023. This is illustrated by Kato, and it was going for £11 on eBay. Then we move on to Kangaskhan, and I actually found it quite hard. I genuinely found it quite hard because I do actually the more I look at this Pokemon, I'm like, I do pretty like you, to be honest with you. But ended up going with this really cool full art from Flashfire in 2014. This was illustrated by Ueda and last sold for £21. Then for Horsey, I did end up going with the beautiful illustration rare from Shroud of Fable. One of the few things that was good that came out of Shadow Fable, which of course came out in 2024.
This was illustrated by Komatsu and it was last sold for £18. Now I'm quite a big Kingdra fan, but Seadra I'm not as big of a fan of, so I ended up picking this one here from Dragon Frontier in 2006. This is illustrated by Nakamura and last sold was £5.50, which was pretty hard to find because there's not many last sold on this. Then we have Goldeen, which is one that's like, yay, it's a goldfish. Yeah, so I ended up going with Twilight Masquerade because I just couldn't find one that I really liked in particular. So 2024 on that one. This was illustrated by Misaki and last sold for £1. Again, Sea King, very similar vibe. Not much there that I had to try and like struggle between because it was not a very popular Pokemon in my mind, but ended up going with this one from Ruby and Sapphire from 2003. This is illustrated by Kusajima and last sold for £1.40. Then we have Staryu, which was you know what, this one, I'm not a huge Staryu fan, but this one, I really like this card. This card looks really, really cute with the background and everything, that little bridge in the background. It's a cute card and the lily pads everywhere, it's cute. From Heart Gold Soul Silver in 2010. This Staryu card is illustrated by Himeno and last sold for £2. Then for Starmie, I feel like I had to go for this one. Like, I know it's an obvious pick, but it's a really good card. So I went with Astral Radiant in 2022. The Starmie card was illustrated by Komayama and last sold on that was £67. So it seems to be like bouncing around a bit, it's like in the last solds. Then we have Mr. Mime, which I was very tempted to just say like no to all of them. Like just no to all of them. They're all disgusting. But I ended up going with this GX from Team Up in 2019. Again, see, it's like my comfort one apparently. Again, illustrated by 5-band graphics. So last sold for £5. Then we have Scyther, which this one was really, really cool to be honest with you. But I like the whole build of the Pokemon itself to be honest with you. So it's kind of like, it was kind of a hard one to pick because I do really like this artwork, but I do also like the artworks that show its full body off. But I ended up going with this one from Team Rocket Returns in 2004. Now this is another one that's pretty damn pricey. I didn't realize how pricey it would be, but it was illustrated by Koike. I don't know how to pronounce that. And last sold for £220. So it's pretty big. Then we have Jynx, and I ended up going with the Trainer Gallery from Silver Tempest, which of course came out in 2022. This is illustrated by Hyogonosuke, I'm gonna go with. It's a very long name, it's a very, very long name, but it was last sold for just £2. Some of these Trainer Galleries are so cheap. Then we have this Electabuzz, and I ended up going with Lieutenant Surge's Electabuzz. It's a really cool one to be honest with you, from Gym Heroes in 2000. This was illustrated by Ken Sugimori and last sold for £69. Then we have Magmar, and I'm not a huge fan of this Pokemon, and it was quite hard to find a good card that I actually liked. But this one I thought was pretty cool, and obviously E-Series border. It's a cool card, I guess, in general sort of thing. But ended up going with this one from Ruby and Sapphire in 2003. This was illustrated by Koike and last sold for £16. Then we have Pinsir, and again, going to my beloved Twilight Masquerade, of course, coming out in 2024. This was illustrated by Tada, and it was last sold for £15.60. Then we have Tauros, and I love Paldean Tauros, but obviously, like I said, I'm trying to stick to Cantonian versions, so ended up going with this one from Unified Binds in 2019. This is illustrated by Ito, and it was last sold for £1. Then we have Magikarp, which there was so much back and forth between the one I ended up picking here, of course, Paldea Evolved from 2023, or the Shining Magikarp, because obviously it's such an OG one, but I did end up going with this one because I think the artwork is just too gorgeous to ignore. This was illustrated by Kanda and last sold was £149, so it's definitely creeping up more and more. Then, of course, we have Gyarados, and I had to pick the Shining Gyarados. Obviously, I had to pick the Shining Gyarados from Neo Revelation in 2001. This was illustrated by Ken Sugimori, and it was going last sold for £346. But of course, it's quite hard to be able to try and like get one price because there's so many conditions on every single one of them. So that's a rough sort of idea. Then we have Lapras, which, in case you didn't know, look at my profile picture. He's my favourite Pokemon. Lapras is my favourite Pokemon. So this took a very long time. And again, I think I would probably change my mind if I looked again like now or tomorrow or whenever. But I ended up going with the Lapras EX from Ruby and Sapphire in 2003. This is illustrated by Koike and last sold for £33. Now I do have this myself, but it is a bit damaged, and it's like, it's one of the ones I picked up early on in my collecting journey and didn't condition check enough, so I would quite like to get a mintier one day. Then we have Ditto, which is another one of the amazing clay artworks from Delta Species in 2005. I just think it matches this Pokemon so well. I just think it matches its vibe very well. Of course, this is by Mori and it was last sold for £7.30. Then we have Eevee, of course, and I am going to choose my beloved Twilight Masquerade. Now, there are so many amazing Eevee cards. There genuinely are. There's so many promos that are really cute and everything like that as well. But I did not end up going with my Twilight Masquerade from 2024. Again, like I said, some of my choices were like based on different things. Like this one, it just holds something special to me because it's my very first pack of Twilight Masquerade I opened. I literally had this card in the very first pack, so I was like, ah, amazing. This is illustrated by Sato and last sold for £73, so it's creeping up. Then we have Vaporeon, which again, very hard to pick because it's my second favourite evolution after Leafeon, so very hard to pick one, and I think I did change my mind a couple of times, but I ended up going with this one from Generations in 2016. This is illustrated by Saito, and it was last sold for £9. Then we have the Jolteon to go with it, actually. That's genuinely my favourite one of those out of all of them are, again, from Generations in 2016. Again, illustrated by Saito. Again, literally the same person, but this one actually goes for a bit more, going for £12 actually. But we are going to break the trend when it comes to Flareon because I did pick a different one. I picked this one from Delta Species, which came out in 2005. This is illustrated by Ueda and last sold was £147, so it's a pretty big one, to be honest with you. Then we have Porygon, and I ended up going with Sabrina's Porygon actually from Gym Challenge in 2000. I feel like it's quite like it's a really nice artwork because it kind of like it looks so vintage, like it just gives vintage vibes, so I just think it's a really cool one to pick. This was illustrated by Ken Sugimori and last sold for £1.50. Then we have this Omanyte card, which I have in my own personal collection with a lovely fat swirl on it. So yeah, very happy to have that one from Legend Maker in 2006. This is illustrated by Toyama and last sold was £14, which is higher than what I remember buying it for. So I don't know, maybe I got a good deal. Then we have this Omastar, which is actually the first Sword Shield full art that I picked on the whole entire list. Considering I'm collecting them all, I thought there might be more, but this one, I just really like this artwork, to be honest with you. I'm not a huge Omastar fan, so I feel like this is probably as good as it's going to get, but this is from Silver Tempest in 2022. This is illustrated by Harashio, and it was last sold for £4.60. Then we have this Kabuto card, and again, quite hard to pick, not because I don't like the Pokemon, but I feel like it just, on every artwork, it just looks the same. I don't know if you get what I mean, because there's not really much versatility you can do with it. But, again, Fates Collide from 2016. This is illustrated by Mahu, and it was going for £1. Then we have Kabutops, and this one, genuinely really cool card. I actually genuinely really want it. Now I've seen it, I really want it, from Sandstorm in 2003. This is illustrated by Ueda and last sold for £55. Then we have the Aerodactyl card, which of course I had to go with the illustration, no, with the alt art from Lost Origin in 2022. This is illustrated by Nurikabe, and it was last sold for £119, so definitely one of the biggest ones there. Then again, Snorlax, a really hard one for me to try and pick because I do love collecting my Snorlaxes, but I ended up going with this Rocket Snorlax EX from Team Rocket Returns in 2004. I seem to be picking a lot of Team Rocket Returns, but clearly I like the set. This is illustrated by Arita, and another really big one here, last sold for £600. Then we have the first legendary bird, we have Articuno, and I had to go with literally the most modern one we can get, being the Battle Partners one from 2025. This is illustrated by Korimori. I don't know how to pronounce it perfectly, but it last sold for £12, and I do have this one in my personal collection already because I just love this card. It is gorgeous. We have Zapdos, again, another one really hard for me to try and pick because I do collect Zapdoses, Zapdie. But I'm going with this one from Team Rocket Returns again in 2004. This is illustrated by Ueda and sold for £176 on eBay. Then we have Moltres, and if I had it my way, I'd be picking the Galarian Moltres alt art because that is one of my favourite, if not my favourite alt arts. But I'm doing Cantonian, so I'm going to pick Blaine's Moltres from Gym Heroes in 2000. This is illustrated by Ken Sugimori and last sold for £68. Then we have this Dratini card, which I do, again, actually have, from Dragon Vault in 2012. This was illustrated by Scyther and last sold for £2.70. Then we have Dragonair, which again, I actually do have this card. I have a championship stamped one, which is really, really gorgeous, to be honest with you. But again, it's got cherry blossoms in it. I love my cherry blossom cards. So, beautiful one here from Legends Awakened in 2008. This is illustrated by Chiaki, and the base one on its own, the non-stamped one, it goes for £3.70. Then for Dragonite, I had to go with this amazing light Dragonite from Neo Destiny in 2002. There are so many amazing Dragonite cards, to be honest with you. This was another really hard one to pick, but he looks so cute. I love it. I love it on this card. This is illustrated by Nishida and last sold for £92. Then we have Mewtwo, again, another one that has got so many cards, but again, probably one that I could have spent longer on because I did kind of rush towards the end to try and get it all done. But ended up going with this one here from Evolutions in 2016. This is illustrated by Yoshinobu and it was last sold for £4.60. And finally, we've gotten to number 151. Mr. Mew himself from Triumphant in 2010. Illustrated by Hazazaki, and it last sold on eBay for £46. And there you have it, everyone. That is my favourite card from every single Pokemon in Kanto. The original Generation 1 151 Pokemon. Now this took a very long time to go through, to find the prices, to find the illustrators, to get a decent photo, to record. So yeah, thank you for watching if you've gotten to this point. But I do hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to definitely let me know in the comments down below what your favourite is from my list, and if there's any opinions or anything like that you have, because I love to hear all of the opinions of everyone's anything, especially to do with like the original 151. I feel like everyone has really strong opinions on that. So yeah, of course, let me know in the comments down below anything you thought of this video. And as always, make sure to like, subscribe, share around, all that good stuff, because there's plenty more videos coming. I've got loads more card shows coming up, loads more fun videos like this coming up. So of course, make sure to stick around. And thank you so much, of course, to PokeSwamper and TechPunk Ash for being greatest lab team members of my YouTube channel. And if you fancy being part of my community, which is slowly growing, then make sure to check out down below. There is more details down below, as you can see. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!